Once you've gone through the home search process and you find the one, the first thing that you're going to do is tell your agent. And usually the first thing out of their mouth is going to be, do you want to put in an offer on this property? So when people talk about putting in an offer, submitting an offer, they're talking about putting in a contract of sale on the property at hand. So in order for you to put in that contract of sale, there's a couple things that you and your agent need to discuss. First thing being the value of the property. So in order to find market value of the property, usually your agent will pull together a CMA, a comparative market analysis. So the CMA is going to tell you what the neighborhood or the area has been like in the last 6 months to a year, typically. They're going to look at things that have sold recently, and properties that are on the market currently. And usually what really gives a fair market value of the property is things that have recently sold or things that are under contract. You'll be able to look at how long things have sat on the market for, what price they were listed at, and what they were finally sold for. And your agent will be able to tell you all this information to help you make the best decision when putting in an offer price on the property. So once you and your agent have determined what price that you want to offer on the property, the next thing that needs to be talked about is down payment. This goes back to step number 1 when we talked about getting a pre-approval. So as you have talked with your lender beforehand about your pre-approval, one of the conversations that you typically have was how much you feel comfortable putting as a down payment. Don't forget there are other costs that come into play as well. Your earnest money deposit being one of them, and don't forget about closing costs. That is one that's typically overlooked by a lot of people. You and your agent will also discuss settlement terms, meaning settlement time, when can you get to the closing table, and putting that in the contract of sale for the sellers to look at, evaluate their timeline, and make a determination based on what you guys put down and what works best for them. The next thing you and your agent should talk about are the big 3: inspection, appraisal, and financing. So the inspection contingency really varies on where you're at and the local rules and laws. So some places, just a general home inspection will get the job done. Other places you'll need to do more things such as radon or mold inspections. It all depends on where you're at. Some lenders will also require that you have a termite or a wood-eating insect or organism contingency in the contract. So what that means is you're going to have the place inspected for not just the general home inspection, but also a termite inspection as well. You and your agent should also have a talk about appraisal, and they should run through what they believe that the house could appraise for if they feel like it is of market value. This should also be reflected in what you are going to write up in your contract as a purchase price. They should also talk to you about what happens next if the appraisal does not come back at the agreed upon price. And then lastly, financing terms. Financing terms are making sure that you get approved for the loan that you've been pre-approved for. A lot of times this can be jacked up if your agent doesn't talk to you about doing certain things, such as moving large amounts of money from one account to the other without talking to your lender first. It always happens. It just so happens at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever your hardware store of choice is running this beautiful sale, 60% off, whatever the case may be. All these stainless steel appliances, or Ashley Furniture they have this crazy deal where they're just giving furniture away for very little money, but you got to take out a credit card and it just seems too good to be true. Things like that can affect your ability to close on the loan that you've already applied for. So make sure before you make any grand purchases, you sit down and talk with your loan officer first. Once your offer is submitted, there's typically 3 things that can happen. It could be accepted, which is like 2 thumbs up. They liked all the terms that you guys laid out in your beautifully written contract of sale. It can be rejected. They can say, oh, hell no, we want nothing to do with that, and then you have to start back at ground zero. Or they can counteroffer your initial offer. So a counteroffer means they like some of the stuff that's in there, but they would like to make a couple tweaks to a couple different things. A counteroffer can be as simple as just changing the settlement date, or it could be as major as changing the offer price. This is where negotiating lives when it comes to real estate. Negotiating. This is making tweaks to what has been offered on the table, going back and forth to try to come to a common ground between a buyer and a seller. To have success at this, your agent should really talk to the listing agent and try to figure out what the pain points are. What are the things that the seller needs so that they can come to terms with the deal at hand and move forward with the sale? Sometimes this takes quite a bit of massaging. Sometimes it's rather quick and painless. But at the end of the day, what it all comes down to is getting a contract that everybody agrees on, or as we like to say in the business, a contract ratified. And this has been step number 3 in the How to Buy Your First House Ever video series. Make sure you stay tuned for step number 4 when we talk about contingencies and due diligence. What the hell is due diligence? Well, we'll find out in the next video.